Gorgeous.
Oh, hi, Uncle Ebo.
Gorgeous, good morning.
Good morning. I just have a little feedback in our
Wow.
connection. So we'll try and just reconnect the line real quick. Uncle Ebo Whyte joining us for Food for Thought as we work on the connection. We'll bring you Food for Thought live right here on the Super Morning Show. But listen out, big stories brought to you by Vodafone. Further together, latest film your partner for life, Belmonte by CPL Developers, the ultimate luxury experience. But I want to share something with you. I want to ask if you remember that money emergency. Do you have any money emergency today? Do you remember the money emergency number, the star 770 hash? Well, it's the latest money emergency number in Ghana. So if you have any difficulties, you need money this Monday morning, just pick up your phone confidently and dial star 770 hash. It gives you instant access to loans, funds transfers, payment for goods and services, including utility bills, airtime, data purchase, and so much more, even without data or a smartphone. So there's no need to panic when you find yourself in any money emergency. Just dial star 770 hash and it will always sort you out. So for solutions to your money emergencies, you know what to do. Star 770 hash. This is another one from EcoBank, the Pan African Bank. And EcoBank, as well as Ghana AIDS Commission, test to know your HIV status and take steps to protect your health. And number 10 liver salt, a refreshing relief, as well as GTP lifestyled. They bring us our social media messages. You want to get in touch with us? Please send us WhatsApp messages on 055 1111997, 055 1111997. Send us your tweets and add the hashtag JoySMS. This is the Super Morning Show. Let's try again if we can get Uncle Ebo Whyte with Food for Thought today. Okay, looks like we still have that challenge. We're trying to sort that out and connect to Uncle Ebo Whyte in a bit.
Coffee in your cup and Joy on the set. The Super Morning Show is always the best bet on Joy 99.7 FM.
Come on! Mawobohe wale mawono Efonko bogbeno Enyela yito ike pamo
This means you will lose your number. To re-register your SIM cards, dial *404# and follow the prompt to complete phase 1 of the process. Visit your nearest Vodafone retail center or agent to complete the re-registration process. Remember to take along your Ghana card and have your GPS code handy. Re-register now and get free 4 GB data and 100 minutes talk time. For more information, send an SMS to 655 on Vodafone. And we're not afraid because we have Uncle Whyte joining us for Food for Thought. You're not missing it today. Uncle Ibo, apologies for the challenges earlier, but thank God we have you.
Well, gorgeous. Good morning. How are you doing?
Good morning. I'm very well, thank you. Yourself?
I'm doing great. I was just looking at how cool. I was still on the. Shall we see you on Zoom? And I was looking at how coolly you were dealing with the crisis. You are good.
Thank you, Uncle Ibo.
I would have panicked and started screaming. But it's good to be on. Maybe there are a number of U.S. stand-up comedians that I follow and love, and Pete Davidson is not one of them. But in his 2019 comedy special, Alive from New York, Pete opens his set with the words, quote, "So, Louis C.K. tried to get me fired from SNL my first year, and this is the story," end of quote. He then goes on to tell the story of how the older comedian, Louis C.K., wanted him fired for what he, the older comic, considered the worst misconduct of a performer. Pete Davidson was a member of the cast of Saturday Night Live, that is the SNL, for 8 years. But in his very first year, he claims he almost lost his job because the host of the program at the time, Louis C.K., had taken offense at his conduct. According to Pete, it was the last show of the first season, and he was so happy that the season had gone so well that he decided to celebrate by smoking weed in the dressing room. Louis C.K., who at the time was one of the most respected and experienced comedians on the team, was disgusted by this and said to him, "Are you an idiot? You are going to smoke your career away." The older comedian did not leave it there. He went to the boss to ask that Pete be fired. Fortunately for Pete, the boss called him into his office and advised him instead of firing him. Pete had to live with the shame of incurring the displeasure of a senior comic for years. And then in 2017, 3 years later, several women came forward to accuse Louis C.K. of sexual misconduct. Apparently, Louis C.K. would invite these women, most of whom were young, aspiring comedians who looked up to him, into his room, lock the door, and masturbate before them. It turned out that he had been doing this for years, but the women were silenced with a threat that if they spoke out, it would affect their careers. Pete wondered how a man who was forcing women to watch him masturbate could have the self-righteousness to ask for his firing for smoking weed. It is interesting that sometimes people who are guilty of the worst find the moral courage to attack someone whose faults come nowhere near their own. In Matthew chapter 7, verse 1, Jesus says, quote, "Do not judge, or you too will be judged," end of quote. And in verses 3 and 4 of the same chapter, he says, quote, "Why do you look at a speck of sawdust in your brother's eye and pay no attention to the plank in your own eye? How can you say to your brother, 'Let me take the speck out of your eye,' when all the time there is a plank in your own eye?" End of quote. It reminds me of the case of King David in the Bible and how he was trapped by his own judgment. King David skips going to war with his troops and is taking it easy in his palace. But he is bored and is pacing on the roof of the palace. He then spies a beautiful woman taking her bath, and David is smitten. He wants to have this woman badly. Now, I don't know if you have ever heard this, but it is said that men have enough blood to either run our brains or aid us with getting an erection. So David, even after he had been informed that the woman was not only a married woman, but married to one of the soldiers fighting for him, he still could not restrain himself. He sends for the woman and said, "This is her," with the power of his position. The woman takes it and informs the king that she is pregnant by him. David then comes out with a diabolical plan. He orders the army commander to send the woman's husband, Uriah, home to brief him on how the battle is going. Uriah, totally unaware of what is going on, comes to the palace, gives the king the briefing that he had been ordered to give. And after it, the king tells him, "Well, you wait, I'll give you a message back, but in the meantime, go home and relax. When I'm ready, I'll give you the message." But Uriah, still regarding himself as being at the battlefield and at war, sleeps at the palace instead of going home. The king tries everything to get him to go home to his wife, but nothing works. Uriah is too upright to be compromised. Finally, when the king could not get him to go home to his wife so it would look like the pregnancy was his, he gives a sealed message for the commander to Uriah and sends him back to the battlefield. In the message is a death warrant of Uriah, and the commander, of course, carries out the orders, and Uriah is killed in battle. The king then sends for the woman and makes her his wife. The prophet Nathan is sent to David to confront him with what he had done and to tell him that he had offended the God who made him king. Nathan goes about the assignment with a lot of caution. He gives the king an analogy of a rich man who owned a lot of cattle, snatching the only sheep of a poor man and killing it to feed his guests. David, when he hears this, is livid. With great indignation, he declares, "The man who has done this must die." And Nathan responds, "You are the man." David sentenced a hypothetical man to death for going for a poor neighbor's animal for his guests, when he, the king, had done worse than that. He, as it were, had not just snatched the only animal from his poor neighbor, but he had also ordered his death. And yet he had the courage to be angry with the man and ask for his death. Maybe it is unfortunate that we refuse to obey the command of Jesus not to judge. The point is, we are often guilty of worse than those we are judging. It is good to know that whilst we point a finger at anyone, the remaining four point to us. A word to the wise, I hope, is still enough. And gorgeous, that's my presentation for this morning.
Oh, thank you, Uncle Ebo. As always, food for thought, something to think about, to reflect on.
Holders Forum say they will resume picketing the Ministry of Finance to demand payment of all